This week's guest has been racing for over 30 years. He has spent time on dirt as well as asphalt, but these days he spends more time on a baseball field as a head coach. On this week's episode of Talking with Trader, we sit down and have a chat with the driver of the number 17, Neil Johnston.
At the end of Trader Trail, just north of town. Bench racing with friends, that's how we get down. If it's dirt track stories you're looking for, then tune right in. This is Talking with Trader. Let's begin. All cars on the chain.
What you got here?
Well, that's yours.
Look at that.
Yeah, that
He
is
makes
a
those.
picture I took from your Facebook page and
Heck
used.
yeah.
That's kind of our thing. It's got a note on the back that says, "Thanks for doing our show."
Well, heck yeah. That's awesome.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. It's kind of a selfish thing.
What do you mean?
And I'm recording this, so
That's okay.
if they see, if people see,
Yeah.
my thought was, and I watch a lot of podcasts.
Sure.
Like I watch every day,
Mhm.
and it's even more now that we started doing this.
Yeah.
But every podcast I watch, the guest always brings the host a gift. So
The guest bring the.
So I said, if I start giving a guest
Oh.
a gift,
Yeah.
maybe eventually somebody will bring a hat or a T-shirt or something like that. So I'm being selfish, not a cheeseburger.
It's cheeseburger.
That's a good point. I should have brought somebody to look at my truck.
I'm hungry.
Well, I asked the same question to everybody to start.
Mm-hmm.
Your number is 17.
It is.
And the question fans always want to know is, how did you get the number 17?
So 17 was, I think I'm going to answer a lot like some other people, but it was my sports number when I was young. And I don't even know, I don't know if it was one that was assigned to me maybe or what, but always, like, especially growing up, and now I love the font. Like, I'm picky about my font. It's got to be our, lean back 7.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And,
It's old school.
Yeah, but it's just like I said, it was my baseball number growing up, which baseball is my second sport. I do that with my son, and I love baseball, almost as much as I do racing. Probably, I don't know, they're probably pretty close, but so 17 was my baseball number growing up, and I've really never had any other numbers. I say that I've always wanted to do some of my dad's old numbers because my dad had a bunch of numbers. He used 3, 99. He was the number 5 when he drove a late model for a guy. But I did have a 99 with my baby grand stock cars that I raced on asphalt. It was number 99, kind of to pay tribute to him. And I think I used 33 as well on one of my late models. But I've always just kind of stuck with the 17. And now my boy, he uses 17 on his baseball and stuff. So
I was going to ask you that. I have that note here.
Yeah.
Cooper, right?
Yes, Cooper. Yep.
Cooper wears 17.
Yeah.
Do you coach Cooper Steve?
I do. Yeah, we've got a travel ball team. They're 9 and under. And we actually started, me and Jimmy Brewer, back in, it was 2 years ago. We were 7 and under. And it's called the Knuckleheads.
Knuckleheads.
Yeah, the
That's a good
Knuckleheads. And we're just kind of a small organization. The parents and the families don't have to pay the big fees like they do at some of these other big organizations. We do fundraisers, and we're just kind of low budget gunning, but we can compete with any of them guys. We actually just got bumped up from 9AA to 9 AAA.
That's pretty
So
good.
the competition's going to get tough. But yeah, I got Cooper, and then I've also got a daughter, Madison, who's 11. And that's my 2 pride and joys.
Does she play sports?
She did competitive cheer for a little while, and she just didn't want to do it this year, so she took a year off. But she's done volleyball, and she's a big supporter of her brother with baseball, and loves the baseball families and all the stuff that goes along with it. She probably knows more about baseball than any other 11-year-old girl I know. But
Having the kids slowed you down racing.
having the kids have slowed me down racing a lot. My wife, she's going to say that that's crazy, but it's the truth. I raced 8 times last year, and I don't ever remember under 15 or 20, in a year. There's one year I raced only 36 times or something, she'll remind me of that too. But with the kids, it slowed down, especially with this baseball deal, because we start in March, or 1st of March, actually, into February, and we go through June. Our state tournament's usually at the end of June, and like we have 1 week in a month, maybe we're off, and it's an all weekend deal. It's Saturday, Sunday.
Go.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I got rid of the V mod and got the factory stock. Is it's just not saying that it's not as serious as the B mods, but it seems like it is to me. And I don't have $40,000 sitting there in the shop, only racing 8 times a year. And when we do go race, we get our butt kicked because we're not working on it all the time, and we're not racing 30 times a year like the Ragsdales and the Kings. Because you got to race, you got to be in there in the shop and put the time in.
Yeah, get the seat time.
I don't want the time. I'm at a point in my life where I can race 6 or 8 times a year and
be happy.
And happy. And if
that's
we win
good.
1 or 2, that's great, but with the B mod, you want to go to win 1 or 2, racing 8 times a year. Yeah. You're gonna be a 10th place car, and so that's one reason why I kind of went to the factory stock. Just a little more. It's fun too. They're fun. They're slow. Everybody asks me. That's the first question they ask me is it slower? I was like, yeah, it's slower, but it's fun. It's still fun. It's like 2 seconds slower. It's a big difference.
But it seems like a long, big
difference. And you get around a group of cars, and man, that factory stock class is so close and so
very competitive.
It's still fun, and Dad enjoys it. That's the main reason I keep the car probably is because of Dad. Something to tinker on. I enjoy doing it with him.
I like the full body cars.
Oh, full body cars. Yeah. Right. I wish the super stocks were still around. I'd be one of them.
Exactly. Is there going from the modified to the stock car? Mm-hmm. I know there's a big money deal there, but y'all have to run the American racers. Mm-hmm. That's one of it seems like to me. Yeah. Everybody's gripe is having to spend that almost $200 for a tire. Yeah. When you could do something different.
I bought 8 takeoffs last year where I paid for 2 new American racers, and they were grooved and sopped and ready. And it's just that I kind of wish they wouldn't let us groove them and sop them. I like it down South Factory Store where you just run the slicks. It takes a lot less time. But I've got a really good tire guy too, Tommy Denny, that loves to work on them tires. So
that's good.
But yeah, that helps me out a bunch. You know how the tire work is. It's work and stuff
constantly.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back for a second. Mm-hmm. We'll go back to racing, but I know that a lot of other dads are probably going to think about this too. Do you remember why I quit racing? The biggest reason?
No.
Coaching softball.
Yep.
And I coached my middle daughter. She's 20 now. She'll be 21 soon. I coached my youngest daughter, who is 13. Mm-hmm. I'm not allowed to coach my kids anymore. Have you? How is that for you, like coaching your kids?
Yeah, it's been tough. And my wife, she gets on me all the time about being too hard on him. Too hard on the moms and stuff. But I think because I know he's got it in him. He's a great ball player, and I don't think I'm too tough on him. I think it's too bad. But I do get burnt out a little bit. Coaching that team, and me and my wife kind of run that team as far as setting the schedule and stuff like that. And I get burnt out, and so here in a few weeks, if he picks up for another team, I told him, I said, I want to be coach. I want to be a dad in the stand, and just sit back and be able to enjoy it. Because I feel like I miss stuff because I'm worried about the other kids too, and stuff. But yeah, I get what you're saying about that.
I'll tell you the funny thing, the best thing about when you go from coaching to being a fan is you get to go to Academy or Dixon, pick that chair out.
That's right.
And everybody's sitting in those comfy chairs and you're sitting on a bucket out there.
I'm a bucket now. I got the old baseball bucket.
Well, speaking of Cooper, I saw on your Facebook page, I don't know when it was you posted. I was going through doing some research. Yeah. You had said that you were trying to talk one of your kids into racing. Cooper.
So it's kind of a funny story. My wife grew up around racing. Her brother, Brandon Wilson and Steve Wilson, and I really thought we had kids should be all about having some little race car drivers, but it's kind of been the total opposite, and I see her point. She's been around it so long. I think she's a little burnt out, and she sees how much time and how much money, it takes to do it and stuff. And so right now she just wants him to concentrate on baseball, and I kind of understand that. And I have a great time with him in baseball too, and getting to work with him and stuff. It's no different than me and my dad being in the shop. So I don't care what he does as long as he's in something. But yeah, I would like to see him race one day. He really doesn't show much desire right now to want to race. Which I didn't either until I was 10. My parents said I'd go out there just like Cooper does. Cooper loves going out there. He loves riding around the 4-wheeler and loves going to ride with me if I Victory Lane or something, and he's not scared of the noise or anything like that. But I think as he gets older, I got a feeling he's going to want to race. But we'll see. Hopefully he does, maybe. But he does good. Like we took him up to K1 the other day for go-kart doing. He does a really good job. Like he set fast time like 3 or 4 of the sessions.
There you go.
Some older kids.
He's got it.
So he's got it. And my little girl does too. I'm not so sure she won't be a racer. She's kind of a daredevil and kind of wild.
Good too. A lot of girls racing now.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, sure enough. So maybe one day they'll race, but if not, just support whatever they do. Yeah, it's kind of a mix between he's not really interested in it yet, and Mom's saying no.
So I learned a couple more things going through your Facebook page. Something I thought was really cool. You've been to the Chili Bowl with your dad 33 years in a row.
Wow, 3 years.
That is impressive.
That's
very impressive.
So I was 10 years old, and when I started racing go-karts, and we went to a Tulsa shootout, which is the weekend before with the go-karts. And Joe Cox invited us to come back for the Chili Bowl. And said he had some extra tickets. He'd bought 10 or 12 that year or whatever. And we started going that year. And we haven't missed. We've missed twice. So I had Madison on May 16th, and it fell right in the middle of the chili ball, so I missed that year. And then my dad had a heart attack one year. He didn't get through. I think I ended up going on Saturday after he got through with all the surgery. But other than that, no, we hadn't missed, and it's just our thing, man. I told him the other day, he's gets around a little bit slow sometimes with his knees and backs and stuff. I told him the other day, I said, well, Dad, I'm going to wheelchair you in here and want to be in the handicap section, but we're going to keep doing it, And I actually won that Tulsa shootout the next year.
Really?
Got disqualified. Yeah, we had the valve springs in back. The exhaust on the intake and intake on the exhaust. And come to find out, it actually hurt the performance of the motors. There was like 200 Junior 1 entries, and I drew the number 1 pill and led every lap of the heat, and actually got past in the feature, and the caution come out, and they didn't respect the yellow, so they put me back out front. And I led the final 10 laps and had the golden driller in my hand. It was sponsored by STP and Richard Petty, who drove for STP. He was there. Really cool. I shook his hand. I had an STP watch and all this stuff, and I'll never forget. I was 10 years old or 11 at this time, and they took it away from me. Disqualified.
So was that your first year running the?
That was my second
year running the Tulsa shootout. You won it.
Yeah.
And the 30th year running the Spooker.
Mm-hmm.
You finally won the
30th year. Yeah, I think I've won either 2 or 3 keggers, but I'd never won the Spooker until this last year in the factory stock deal, and so that was pretty exciting, for Dad. Dad's got some big wins too. He's got some silver cups and some different things that he won, some big summertime classics and Cocoa Class stuff like that. So that was pretty cool to be able to put the Spooker trophy in the shop as well.
I'm sure it was.
So that was pretty
you raced some asphalt racing too.
Yeah. So I've run about everything except for like a dirt late model or even a dirt modified. I really don't have much time on a dirt, like A mod. I do a B mod. And kind of 4-link though. I just never had the desire. I don't know. We never really wanted to spend the money it took. Of course, I say that, and we were spending that much in B mod at the end, but we probably could have ran A mod, But I ran some asphalt late model stuff. Of course, I ran about every street stock you can imagine on dirt and everything else. And then we had a baby grand that we ran on asphalt. It was a quarter scale, kind of like the Legends.
I think I remember.
They had more NASCAR looking top bodies on them. Had 1200cc Yamahas, and we went all over the world and raced with that thing. We went to Lake Erie, Pennsylvania. Wow. I raced at Nashville Fairgrounds. We went to Florida during speed weeks and ran one year. Just had a really good time. It's just so expensive to travel, all those places. And then I got to where you'd only race once a month, and I just told guys I'm going to race every weekend. So we went back to the dirt, and started doing that. And that was the other deal about the late model too. I loved going to Lebanon, but it was 4.5 hours every week, and we couldn't afford to go every week. And we didn't have the engine program. And I remember Rubel was one of the engines to have at Lebanon where I raced I-44, and we just couldn't afford one. They were $15,000 or whatever. We had a Bush motor that was probably $8,000. And it kept breaking. We kept having issues, but it was a good night up there when we just went and didn't get lapped in a 25 lap feature. But I also raced against Larry Phelps. It was right at the end of his career. So there was a guy named Swear, and that was real fast. There was 4 or 5 that were just really fast in the class of the fields, and then the rest 5 through 20 were fighting for whatever. But I wish we could have been a little more competitive because I really enjoyed the asphalt. I enjoy dirt more. Don't let my dad see this interview because he's an asphalt guy, but he knows that. He knows I like dirt more. But he grew up on the asphalt.
Right.
And that was his thing.
So when your dad was racing, where was he racing at most of the time? Was it
Tri-State? Yeah.
When they were asphalt?
Oh, yeah. Okay. It was asphalt, and then it was dirt also. But he traveled a little bit too. He went down to Florida for speed weeks a few times, I think, and then he drove Springfield, and of course the Fairgrounds, Thunderbird. But his main deal was Tri-State too. But like I said, he was right in that mix right there where it was, he started asphalt and then it went to dirt. And so he probably has more time on dirt, but for some reason he's just an asphalt guy. He just I'll be on a Friday or Saturday night, I'll be watching, Flo and watching a dirt race, and I'll call him, hey, you watching it? No, I'm watching, the asphalt late model somewhere, and he just loves the asphalt.
Well, it's cleaner for one thing.
It is cleaner. And
your car stays neater and cleaner.
Yeah.
Unless you end up with them right. But
yeah. Well, when you wreck though,
they're usually big
on the asphalt. Yeah.
How old were you when your dad stopped racing?
I guess when I started go-karting, when he quit. Yeah. So in 92, and he'd raced for quite a few years there. And I'm trying to remember if I ever raced against him. I think so. I used to go with our baby grand. They tried to get him going in Tulsa. They had a little beach track there called Cherokee Speed.
Yeah, I remember that. Didn't Ron Taylor go down there and race?
Yep. And we were trying to get the baby grands going. And a guy would bring them over from Tulsa or from Joplin or somewhere And he had my dad put in the car one night just so we'd have another car because there's only like 4 or 5 of us, on a good night, and we wanted to have a bunch of cars that night. So he had 3 or 4 cars and I raced against him. I'm pretty sure I beat him. I can't remember exactly, but
I've seen you look at the camera.
Yeah, I think that's the only time I ever raced against him. I can never remember racing against him except for that time in the Baby Grand. But he didn't, like I said, after when he quit, he didn't race anymore at all.
I was going to tell this story last week and I forgot about it. I've raced against you one time. And my favorite thing about that race is Dad had bought a car that night at the track from Teddy Wallace, which I ended up later driving.
Yeah.
I pulled up next to Dad on the track and I looked over and he held the steering wheel out the window. It just had the steering wheel in his hand. So I'm like, what's going on? Well, after the race, I found out Teddy is much shorter than Dad. Yes. Dad had to take the steering wheel off to push the clutch and shift and then put the steering wheel back on.
And I tried to race it like that too.
Wow.
I beat him too.
We got to do it.
Yeah.
I beat him too. I don't think he finished the race.
Yeah. The last time I can remember my dad being in a race car, it was one of the super stocks, and we had a bad vibration, and we changed the drive shaft and rear end and changed all this stuff. We couldn't figure it out. And we took it out there on a spooker play night, and I ran a couple sessions, and he said, "It's still vibrating." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I can't tell where it's coming from. I've picked it out of gear, I've done all kinds of different stuff. I can still feel it." And he said, "Let me get in it." And of course, he'd had his heart issues and stuff. I was kind of worried about him getting in it, I thought, oh boy. I let him get in it. He got in it. He took off there, dude, and it was like, he was flying, And he come in and he's out of breath, and stuff. I said, "Well, did you feel the vibration?" And he's like, I forgot about it. He's like, "They're having such a good time." And he said, how much RPMs did you turn?" And I'm like, "I don't remember." He said, "Look, I turned it 7,200 or something." I said, "Yeah, that's when you ran off the back straightaway." It wasn't the wall back straightaway. But all he wanted to do was beat me.
He had that adrenaline.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that's the last time that he's actually been in a race car.
So how old were you, or when did you switch to dirt track cars?
Okay, so go-karts from 10 till 13, and that's when I started in the bomber class at Tri-State at 13.
So we're the same age.
Mm-hmm.
So 13, that was 95.
Yeah.
So 95, I was running around in the bleachers acting like a race car driver, and you were racing against my favorite drivers back then. So it's kind of crazy.
Been a long time.
There was a lot of younger.
There was, yeah. You had Andy Milligan, me. There was a bunch of young guys going up through that.
And there was a lot of older ones that acted like young.
Yeah. That was.
Let's throw some of those names.
That's some of my best memories though. In that bomber class when I first started off, we'd start 12th every week. And that was when I become what I think was a pretty decent race car driver, because having to start in the back and pass all them cars,
right.
And about going by point average. And I wish a lot of tracks would do that more often.
Me too.
Point average deal was great. It made you,
made you a driver. I used to love watching when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Going to Crawford or wherever and watching people like Wendell Brewer and all those guys start on the back and never touch a car most of the time and work their way to the front.
Yeah, and you had your few that would pull in or whatever point average, they'd start up front and win, and stuff like that. And I'd run, I don't know how many times I ran second and third to some of them guys, but it still meant more to me to start 12th and run second and throw in the front row and win.
Oh, yeah.
And actually feel like I earned it. Won championships.
A lot more seat time.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah.
So you said that was your favorite, some of those guys were your favorite to race against.
Yeah,
do you have a favorite now, like someone that you enjoy racing against?
Oh man, there's so many. I don't know. Back then it was like Alan Newell, and there was Merle Gallagher. He was one of the good ones that was fast in that class. Going on a few of the years after that, it would have been like the Davlins. Me and the Davlins had some great races in the super stock. Of course, one of my best friends is Ty Evans. I enjoy racing against Ty. And of course, his dad and my dad are best friends, and me and Ty are best friends. And so that was kind of cool to get to race against him,
They always had the neatest looking cars.
Clean cars.
And the neatest pickup and neatest tractor, too.
All home built, too.
Yes.
They can build about anything.
Yes,
they built a lot of my stuff. Ty has, my bodies and stuff, and done a lot of fabrication, and I think a whole lot of that family. And but like I said, just people like that I was good friends with. I mean, you get out there and race clean, like I mentioned the Davlins, and who else? Just we had some good, races with. Of course, Kyle Slater, he's another one that I've had great races with in the super stocks, and then it kind of carried over in the B mods, and we had some really good races. I think a lot of Kyle's a race car driver.
Yes, he is.
But yeah, that's kind of the ones that kind of I think about when I think of, competitors that I like to race against.
What about, and you don't have to answer this, you don't want to. What about somebody that we all have, that one person, like somebody you want to beat? Somebody you want to beat. Like, I beat that guy. That means a lot.
Yeah. Well, most recently would be like Slater or Cody King, when they were during their prime, and at Tri-State, especially in the B mods. And now it would be, like kind of beat Wesley Bourne or something like that in factory stock, because they do really good in that, those cars. And JR gave some good competition last year, beat us out there. And so just anybody who's fast, it's winning a lot. You want to go out there and compete and try to beat those guys. But,
those guys they're clean too.
Yeah. Yeah,
you're not going to get roughed up.
Everyone out of them I just mentioned, I think, great, clean drivers.
So you've mentioned a few wins. Do you have a favorite win, like something that just meant more?
That Spooker one last year was pretty special. Championships were pretty cool. Dad, he likes the championships. I didn't really care much. I mean, I do. They mean a lot to me, but they mean a lot more to Dad. And I don't know if he ever won one. I don't think he did, because he told me he's never ran a full season. He always had something, a motor blow up or something, or a car owner that didn't want to run for points. So those 3 or 4 track championships that we got that I've had with him probably mean a lot to me, because it means a lot to him. And I think I know we've got some go-kart ones and baby grands and stuff like that, but I don't really count a lot of them. The go-kart was go-karts, and the baby grands, there wasn't more than 4 or 5 cars that run every week. But the Tri-State ones, I think we've got 1 bomber, 2 or 3 super stocks, and then 2 B mods. So we've got several track championships. I know those mean a lot. My dad likes track championships, and he likes car shows. He likes to look good at car shows and get the car shows.
Oh yeah.
And he's always been that way. He liked this stuff looking clean too. I'll never forget a story my grandma told me that at the Phoenix Mall show, when he had the black Dillon looking car, the 3 car.
Right. Oh yeah, I remember that.
He got second at the car show. He went out in the parking lot and smashed the trophy. He was mad about it. My grandma picked the trophy up, and glued it back there and put it in pieces. And we used to have it. I don't know where it's at. I need to try to look for it. But we always give him a hard time about that. Get second place at the car show and him throwing a fit. Yeah, my grandma kept all that.
I think our dads are opposite. Yeah. He used to tell me, looking good don't make it fast.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
I always want the car to look good. And Dad always tell me that's not going to make it any faster.
It looks good when it's out front, no matter what it looks like.
Well, I got that beat in my head by Johnston.
Yeah.
They don't mind. That car don't know how good it looks.
That's right.
That car don't know how old it is.
Spend money in the places that it needs.
Exactly.
Mine had to look good, because if it looked good out front, I was never out front.
Yeah.
So it had to look good. I used to tell people I drove slower than everyone else so you could get a good view of the sponsors and make sure the sponsors were taken care of.
The camera guys could get a good shot.
It wasn't because I was slower. I just drove slower.
That was one of my questions. Who are your sponsors?
So that's what, I was hoping to bring that up, because I was actually going to mention that. So currently we don't have a lot of sponsors, and the reason is because I just don't race enough.
Right.
And I just don't want to let them down. But I say that we do. We've got some people that give us money. Louder Brothers Eating Air, Jim's Razorback Pizza. They don't give us a lot of money, but we kind of have a deal work with them where we come over and eat for free once a week with me and my wife and the kids. And so we always put Jim's on there. Always put Louder Brothers, Midwest Automation, Sonny Davis. He's done so much for me over the years. So I'll put his name on my car whether he gives me an opinion or not, and they're a great customer of mine too, as well at Shamrock, and have been for years. So always been loyal to me, and so I'll always put Midwest on my car. As far as anybody else, I said Louder Brothers, of course, Kimball, they provide me a job that helps pay for that. SG Performance Carpenter, Scott Graham, he's helped me out.
Oh, one of the best.
I guarantee it. And then, he's just a phone call away. He'll come over and get us taken care of. We've always ran his stuff. So they're a big sponsor and helper of ours. And I guess other than that, just me and Dad. And that's really about all the sponsors we have right now. Over the years, I've had some great ones. I've had CC's Pizza was a good one of mine back in the Bomber days. Lewis Harris, of course, Midwest, like I said, he's been with us for years, and can't say enough about all of them.
Good stuff.
Yep. Had some good helpers over the year too. Right now I have Gary Weinsberg that helps us. He was a friend of Dad's. We had Don Spradlin, which was an older man that was around racing forever. I've had Ryan Kissinger. Like I said, Tommy Guinea does all my tire work. He loves tire work. He helped Roy forever. I know y'all know Tommy.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And then kind of think Noah Williams. We've got a lot of good helpers. Josh Skelton. Josh Skelton.
Josh.
For a long
Hey, you
time.
can't hardly beat Josh.
You can't beat Josh. Josh is great. He's
I mean,
great.
you see Josh everywhere on TV.
Yeah, and I met Josh at West Plains. He got a ride with Chuck somehow or something and showed up in the pits there. Just one of them deals how he shows up and
You're
telling
right.
where and met him there. And we just hit it off. And he got to where he was helping us quite a bit there for a while until he got big time and started helping all these other guys.
Oh, yeah, he's big time.
But now we still talk weekly, sometimes daily, and I go by and see him at the racetrack. Of course, usually when he's at the racetrack, he's focused and full business.
He is focused.
He gets paid to do it, so that's what he.
You're right.
So I have something that you don't know. I'm sure you don't know this, and I haven't told anyone. Last week I was doing some research. And I went to my storage unit because I had this thought in my head and I wasn't sure. So I went to my storage unit and I went through some stuff. In 1996, I drove a car that you owned. We called it the Monte Cutlaboo. My heat race, my very first heat race, I finished last, and you won that race.
Really?
And Larry Campbell finished second.
Yeah, Larry. Yeah.
And I didn't make the A feature.
That was Tommy Burke's car.
Yeah. Was it? Yeah.
So
was that the Roadrunner day?
That was
Roadrunner day.
1996 was the one that I have. My mother had saved the newspaper article, and I have it in my storage unit.
Yeah.
Because it was my first race, and sure enough, you won that race. So
that's pretty cool.
I thought that was neat.
Yep. Larry Campbell was a good friend of mine too. He still is.
He was fun.
Larry.
I talked to him every now and then.
Before I went on the track for hot laps that night, Larry beat the bumper off the back of the car in the pits because he knew it was me.
Yeah.
So
he
beat the bumper completely off the car, just pushing me around.
Looking at those old programs, so I'll tell you, Evans has got a ton of them, and man, I'd love to just go over and spend 2 days and look through them. And a good friend of ours had some, Don Spradlin, that when I was mentioning to help us, he had a bunch. I think maybe field pot or somebody ended up with them. So when he passed away, somebody got him a new field pot. But yeah, I love looking at those old programs.
Yeah.
I've got some of the things.
1967 up.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of them are Crawford, but I have some from other tracks too. Tri-State and was it Razorback? I have Sooner Speedway. Matter of fact, there's a Sooner right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure enough.
I have one that somebody's redone, but
that's pretty cool. Yeah. That is pretty cool.
So, are you planning on racing at Tri-State this year?
Yeah.
Are you racing anywhere else? Just Tri-State?
I say nowhere else. I really would like to go, and one of the reasons why I bought that factory stock is to go to one of those down south big races. They got the 30,000. They got the 10.
A lot of guys from around here.
Yeah. Rick goes down there, Edgerton, which is a good buddy of mine. Justin Johnston, Lon, and JR go down there. I'd really like to go try to make one or two of them big shows, and kind of bring back the old, like the 10,000 win at Batesville type, that would be feeling, nice. Because I love that race. That race was one of my favorites to go to every year. We went down there and we've probably been there 10 times, only made the show 2 or 3, but then they were at the end, but we went so many years and just struggled but it helped us, and it helped us at Tri-State, learn things and make us a better driver. And when we went back those last few years and made it, I got around 10th, I think was the best I ever ran in that 10,000, and we ran 17th another year. But really like going to all the different tracks. I wish I could sit down and remember all the tracks I've been to. It's got to be over 50, I would think, as far as the tracks and stuff, and the baby brand stuff, the asphalt stuff.
So I asked you about your favorite win. Mm-hmm. Is there any race that you just think, dang, I should have won that? Like something that you remember, like
100%. Yeah, the 5,000 win at Tri-State Superstock.
What happened?
I don't remember what happened in the heat. We knew we were getting the heat, and then in the feature, I had run a B, won the B, or ran second. I ran second to B, and got into the back of somebody and poked a hole in the radiator. And we didn't have a whole lot of time. We repaired it with the repair stuff, and tried to get the best we could. And went out for the feature. I think I started 18th and drove up to about 10th, and the track locked down. And I love a lockdown track. I guess maybe it's some of my asphalt experience or something, but I just love a lockdown track, especially if it's a little wider than a groove, because I'll go down and they'll shut down and I'll just drive around, in the rubber, And anyway, drove all the way up to I think 5th, and I looked down and the temperature gauge was tagged in 240, and I'm like, I drove from 18th to 4th. This is 5,000 win, I'm a dummy, kicked in. I just kept racing, and it was spitting water in the car sheet, and stuff. Anyways, ran about 2 or 3 more laps. Anyways, ended up making it to 3rd, and was behind, I don't know if it was Dylan or who, Dylan, somebody and me, and we were like, my car was really good, and we made it about another 5 or 10 laps, and at a caution, and man, the engine's like squealing and stuff. Like you can hear bearings. Like
It's done.
It's hot. And I thought I felt the vibration, so I ended up pulling off. But I made it up to third and got into the pits and shut it off, and it wouldn't even shut off. It was so hot. It was decent.
Wow.
You know, it was that sucker. I still have that block. And
really?
Yeah. We took the heads off, and that's about, you know, the block's still sitting there in my old shop next door, but it's seized up. And it's
You probably prefer to have the trophy from that night from the block.
Probably so, but I wasn't about to pull it.
Right.
And that's what Ty Evans gives me a hard time. So why did you pull? I'm like, well, it was shaking pretty bad and making some weird noises. It was fixing to like that go bad.
You know,
I didn't want it to blow up.
One time I thought I had a real shot at winning a race, and it was the first night I drove. The last car I drove was a car he owned.
Yeah.
And I had no business being on the track with those guys, but for some reason that car was working that night. And I drove up to second or third, and I was running next to Randall Irvin.
Yeah.
Same thing. He got up to 240, and it wasn't my car. And there's no way I was letting it have it. So I pulled off. I never got up to fifth or sixth the rest of the season.
Most of the time, I'm pretty smart about that. But for some reason, that race there, I should have pulled off way before. But man, we were passing cars and stuff.
Right.
And I don't remember if it was year before that. I ran second to Andy at that race, Andy Milligan, and he was in the 88 truck car for Nicholson.
Right.
So I really wanted that race after running second. You know, matter of fact, that's probably my biggest payday when I ran second that race for 2,500.
Wow.
It was 5,000 win, 2,500 per second. And so other than the spookers at 1,000 or whatever, that's probably the most I ever won in one night was 2,500. So I really wanted that 5,000. And Shamrock was a big sponsor of that race too. Mm-hmm. It was always the Shamrock Bolt and Screw Super Stock Special, you know. And so my boss, you know, you got to win that race, you know. And so when I ran second to Andy and then come back a few years later, and I think it was a Sunday deal where it didn't lock down rubber, and we were really good and drove up there to the third or whatever, and then the motor, you know, got hot. And so that's probably the one that got away from me, but the one I really wanted bad that I didn't ever get to win.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Are you going to be running the Spooker this year?
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's 23rd, is that right? Something like that?
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
I'm trying to remember. I don't think I've missed a Spooker since I started racing, even in the asphalt days and stuff. One year I drove for Jim Bell. I drove for that year or something, and that's another thing too I'd like to mention is the people I drove for. Jim Bell was a great car owner. I raced Chess stuff for a while. Of course, Sonny Davis. I ran a super stock for him for a while there. Rick Edgerton's let me drive his car before. There's just been several people that I've got to. Well, if I didn't have a ride or something going on. My father-in-law Steve Wilson, he let me run a Spooker one time when I didn't have a car because I didn't want to miss the Spooker, you know. And there's been a lot of people over the years that's gave us rides and stuff, and I want to say I appreciate them as well. And but no, I don't think I've missed a Spooker since I started racing since I was 13. So
that's pretty awesome.
Pretty cool. But
that's pretty good.
Finally got one last year.
There you go.
All right, so I call this the white flag lap. Mm-hmm. Last question.
Yep.
You get to choose any era of cars in whatever class you want. Mm-hmm. You and 5 competitors.
Yeah.
Who do you want to race against?
Now, did you watch the field pot one?
No, I did, but then I fell asleep. I was actually listening to it and watching it.
You were boring,
Jim. No, it was like late at night one night.
Anyway, he picked the old Leaf Spring Camaro.
Yeah. I would say like the old late models, like from the 80s.
Really?
Like with the big spoilers and stuff.
Well, they were cool looking.
Big tires.
Big tires, bubble fenders.
Front ends, you know.
Oh, yeah. That. They were good looking cars.
And as far as competitors, probably me and my dad. Ty and Tilly. That's 4, right?
Right.
I don't know who else I'd put in the 5th one. That'd be a pretty good 4-part battle, but I don't know. Rodney Nobles, because y'all mentioned Rodney earlier, and I was going to tell you, so if I had a favorite driver growing up and over the years and stuff, of course, Dad's number 1, for sure. Dad would definitely be my favorite driver. And,
exactly.
Idolize a role model and everything else. And I was only a good driver, but he was a great person and a great father. But Rodney Nobles was like 1A. So when I was growing up about the age I really started getting interested, Dad built a car for Rodney or something. I can't remember the connection, but anyhow, I hung out in Rodney's pits a lot. His grandma or mom used to make me cookies and brownies and stuff on the track, and I used to go up in their box feed and stuff. And so Rodney was like my 1A. Like he was my favorite driver. And so I guess I put Rodney in there as the 5th.
So
human Jim.
Yeah.
I like can't beat that pair.
Yeah, great thought.
I gotta say I'm a little jealous. I was gonna save this, but Rodney was my favorite driver too. I have an 8x10 picture that Rodney autographed for me when I was 10.
Great.
And then I'd say 25 years later, I was coaching softball.
Yeah.
And this guy just come walking up to me and he's like, "Is your name Justin?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm Rodney Nobles." And we've been great friends ever since. And he's always checking. He's just a super great guy.
Yes, Rodney's a great guy. He, like I said, he was really cool to me when I was young, growing up and stuff. And we bought that first asphalt late model that we had was Rodney's.
Really?
Yeah. We bought it from Jim and Rodney and took it up to Lebanon and raced it. And the first year I raced it, it was black and it was number one. I don't know why it was 1 instead of 11, but it looked a lot like his old super stock cars with the ball black with the silver stripe at the bottom, the silver one with the blue outline. Mm-hmm. And that car is the car that I had the worst accident I ever had.
Really?
Race car. Yeah, I ended up in the fence at Lebanon. Mm-hmm.
So the funny thing is that was also part of Dad sold their trailer for them. He had a bunch of setup sheets in there, hanging in there, and he had setup sheets for that car still hanging there. And he had merchandise from when he raced that car.
We walked in the trailer and it was like they'd never left the racetrack. It was perfect.
Cool. They like
it was nice, neat.
I'll send you that picture of that.
Oh, I have that picture. I'll make sure. Oh, not the wreck.
Yes. And I'll look at this.
I have a picture of when Rodney had it.
I'll have to send it to you so you can put it up on this video. The car was destroyed. So I'll never forget we were in turn 3 and 4 and Lebanon was real banked. And then the way you got on the racetrack, you come off of turn 4 off the top and you just drop onto the track. There was a little flat area there and there was a girl, believe it or not, underneath me and got sideways and hit me. When she hit me, it knocked the steering wheel out of my hands and I went up over that banking and right there where the flat was, we ended up in the fence. Oh. And luckily it didn't hurt me worse than it did. It just bruised me up and stuff. But I've got that picture, so I'll make sure before I leave, and we'll try to.
I'll make sure
it's
on the
video.
on there.
Yeah, I've got a lot of old videos, or pictures and stuff. It's in your old cars.
Good.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess that about does it. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you guys. I love this. Anybody that they ask to come do this, come do it because it's a great thing for the area. Great thing for racing.
That's the way we're trying to make it work. Easy, fun, simple.
Sure.
Laughs.
Take 30 minutes.
Right.
We'll
have a good time.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Yes, thank you. It's out here. Cool too, though.